Hi, thanks for coming. I'm just going to get started. I am Ed Hore, and I seem to have somehow become chair of this organization, but I don't really know anything. It's really Ula that runs everything, and is the guiding genius behind it. She just likes to have somebody come up and kind of hold the mic, I think. And then there's Neal Colgrass, who is my fabulous co-chair. And we are kind of newly selected, and we haven't had a meeting inside for a while. It seems like 5 years or something. It's really been quite a while. We've had Harbourfront. We had one inside. That's right. And now we thank Cathy. If you were there for that, were you there? You were there for that. And now we're here. We used to do the meetings here, and so now we're kind of back again. And and it was Fran Pelagi and Carol McCants who were instrumental, I understand, in kind of reestablishing relationships with the hotelier.
Neal, yes.
And Neal, of course. Well, Neal always is. And we'd like to thank them for doing that, because it's really nice to have people face to face, I think. I have really missed it. Zoom meetings only really get you so far. There's something I think really significant about just being able to press the flash and actually say hello to people. It's really great, and we appreciate so much all the people who just took the trouble to get themselves in here on such a beautiful evening. It's really nice. So to start off, I guess I'm going to do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Chippewa, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. We pay tribute to the legacy of all First Peoples of Canada, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the communities that have grown in the treaty lands. And we'd like, as I said, to thank the Radisson Blu Hotel for having us. We don't pay them. They do it out of the goodness of their heart, and they're fantastically helpful. It's unbelievable, really, how great they are. It's a real boon to the community to have them here. I forget the name of our techie guy, actually. What's the name of the guy who sets up the mic? Not you, but the guy who's here. And he's fantastic. He's been the guy doing this for years and years.
30 years, yeah.
And he's just so great, always so helpful, amazing. It's such a great thing. So we have, what?
1987.
1987, is that when he joined? He joined the hotel?
No.
Okay. Whatever. Anyway, he's a great guy. That's all that matters. Neal is going to report on all of our new volunteers. We have a fantastic number of new volunteers. This is an initiative launched by Ula, who said, let's have a meeting and get a bunch of people who are interested to come and sort of say hello and say what they're interested in. And a surprising number of people replied. I was unfortunately not able to get to the meetings. I always had something else on at the same time. And so they are, by and large, new to me as well. And so we're really thrilled that there's all these folks coming out saying they want to be involved. And Neal is going to tell us about it. You want to come up and talk?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, we were so short of volunteers, we kind of came close to the end. We weren't quite sure what was going to happen with YQNA, so we put out the call, and we got a strong response. We had Angelo Bertolas here as our chair for 7 years. He was wonderful. We needed new chairs, we needed new volunteers in various positions. The response was just what we hoped for. So we have our 2 new co-chairs, as you've heard about. We have a few other people I'd like to acknowledge here today. We have our new secretary and tech officer, Didi Wu, who is at the camera. Carolyn Johnson continues as treasurer. She's standing at the back there. So you may not know that YQNA has had regular meetings and contact with many agencies and groups that shape our neighborhood, such as Toronto Police, Marine Police, Harbourfront Centre, Waterfront Toronto, elected politicians and Waterfront for All, FOSTRA, the Federation of South Toronto Residents Associations, Toronto Transit, Island Airport, and more. Each area now has 1 or 2 YQNA volunteers who chose their favorite subject. In the future, they will report in our meetings on what is happening in their field and carry their ideas back and forth. So, I don't know if everyone's here, but I would like to thank Leah Lambert, who is our social media communications person. Liz McCroarty, who is our rep to Fostra. She's in the background. Carl Laffin and Lalita Krishna are our Harbourfront Centre representatives, and I'm not sure they're here yet. We also have Carl Laffin and Lynn Monroe on Parks. They're with Waterfront Toronto and City Parks and Rec. Our Marine Police rep is Stephen Cooper, and he's here. Mark Stern and Julie Breen with Toronto Police 52 Division. They'll be on the Community Police Liaison Committee. And Julie is here. And Jennifer Lewis is our Environmental and Lake Issues representative. And she's not here yet, okay. So the volunteers form our planning committee, which is the hub for the free flow of information and decisions. Everybody else is invited to contribute ideas through our webpage on the Contact Us form. So please do reach out if you have any ideas. And at that point, I can give things back to Ed.
Oh, yeah, well, Carol Johnson has been our longtime treasurer, and do you want to talk from back there? Do you want to come up here? Okay, she's going to give us a report. We rely on Carolyn to keep the books straight, and we have very complex budgeting and solvency issues sometimes. So Carolyn keeps us on top of it. Here she comes. There she is.
Finally.
Hello everyone, yeah, I've been treasurer for quite a while after I was co-chair, and then before that I was secretary, and before that I was just a nuisance. trying to get this group behind my goal of getting an off-leash dog park in the what is now Love Park, and we did, so I'm very pleased about that. Regarding the finances, so we're looking good. We have just over $2,000 in the bank, so if anybody needs any new equipment, do talk to me. Was I going to do an update on 200 Queens Quay West as well?
I think you mentioned that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 200 Queens Quay West is the parking garage, or was. You've probably seen the demolition proceeding at high speed and lots of noise and dust, but they're doing an amazing job, I must say. I was so impressed walking along the Harbour Street frontage yesterday to see they'd left the bottom part of the garage wall cut off at about 6 feet high just to be the safety fence. I mean, why build the safety fence when you've got one right there as part of the building? It's so smart, it really is. And there's recycling all the materials, all the steel, and I think they're taking the concrete away to be ground up and reused, stuff like that. It's a really good demolition company. As you may know, it's going to be replaced by a condo, of course, but YQNA worked very hard with the developers, Diamond Corp and Lifetime Developments, to get the best possible project we could, along with Joe Cressy, who was our councillor at the time. So instead of 2 towers and a very tall podium, it's now 1 tower at the east end and a much lower podium. If I'm not mistaken, it's 5 stories. And the west end at Simcoe Street will feature a restaurant, and there'll be a little parquet-y thing. And there won't be any access from the existing Water Club condo driveway or Simcoe Street. Everybody will have to go in off Harbour Street, so that'll reduce the local traffic tremendously. They will still have underground parking, some for residents and some for sale, paid parking for visitors and whatnot, so it'll be an interesting project. Cressy worked hard to get some affordable housing units in there. I believe they went back to the city's planning or the Committee of Adjustment to get some changes made to the units. Maybe they went smaller, which is unfortunate. But anyway, they will be back for, I think, some further public consultation on the site plan, which will be good. That's about all I can think of to tell you at the moment. Thanks. Questions?
Would you mind telling people that we don't have membership fees? We live entirely
Oh,
on-
yes.
and-
That's
and
why I
we
was,
have a
yeah,
tip box.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so yes, I did shout from the back, please donate. You can donate two different ways. You can go on the website, YQNA.ca, and hit the donate button, and then put your credit card details in, and it will happily suck the money out of your account. Otherwise, you could leave some cash here tonight. We have a jar at the back. Thank you.
What's your balance?
Oh, didn't I tell you? Sorry.
Oh,
2,000.
Yeah, 2,100 and something.
Okay, close enough. That's not bad. That's pretty good. Tom, I think, is next. Tom is works for Ozma Malik, and he's been with us, coming to see us for years and years now. And, so we all know Tom, and we welcome him. We're hoping we'll hear about RISA extensions, the environmental assessment of that, when that might happen. There's been this issue about sewage outflow into the break wall near the Thermay Spa. I think there's been a development on that. Maybe Chris knows more about that. And first steps towards a Toronto charter for more autonomy and more.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You take the sewage, so.
You'll do the sewage.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff.
Hi there. Oh, very good. This is very welcome. Microphone for my scratchy, soft tone of voice. Appreciate that. And it's great to be back inside in person after a long hiatus as well from the Radisson. I know the deputy mayor was really pleased to join you at Harbourfront Centre in that environment too, and looking forward to another appearance as well too. She was unable to make it tonight, so I'll make sure I represent some of her updates. I know as well my colleague Sarah as well, who has stepped to the back to take a photo, but she is a representative here who works on constituency and community issues for the area as well. So I know this area has so much going on that there's so much attention on it in our office in terms of resources and certainly the updates that I have from the deputy mayor as well. So I just wanted to start on RISA. We know, just maybe going back in terms of the brief background, RISA is a runway and safety area requirement of Transport Canada for all airports in Canada. It was an important safety regulation that had a very quick, relatively quick deadline for implementation by 2027. So Ports Toronto, Transport Canada, and the City of Toronto, which are the landowners that share responsibility for the Island Airport lands, and which operates under a tripartite agreement of all those parties, worked to implement a recommended landform extension, which was to provide a slightly longer runway end for in the case of an accident. The importance and priority for the deputy mayor, and I know for City Council, was on ensuring that this regulation was implemented for the deadline that was required, and that we met it in the most efficient way possible. That meant then, when we were presented with a number of options, which included various areas of landmass of increasing size, that the one that provided the most essential safety requirement, which was the smallest area, was the one that City Council endorsed, and that the other parties then, as of January, had signed a new amendment to the tripartite agreement to allow for that landfill to take place. So it was, I know, no small part of the advocacy of many in the community here that led to that focused approval for that smallest area of landmass to be approved. We know that there were other interests at play that sought to have an extension, a long 40-year extension placed on the Island Airport during this period, or other options for the implementation of RISA. We know that what the deputy mayor was absolutely committed to was, for any consideration of the future of the Island Airport, that we have a substantial, rigorous, transparent, and democratic process. And the timeline to implement RISA meant that there wasn't time to consider that. Consider the regulations and growth plans for the airport. So we achieved that in the appropriate amount of time. Now, the next phase of discussions around the island airport will be focused around the Ports Toronto's update on their airport master plan, which we expect to come forward in the next few months. And of course, this organization will be at the center of that consultation, which the city will certainly be following closely. I know as well that the next priority for the Deputy Mayor was ensuring that the construction process for the RISA project is done with a substantial construction management plan that our city staff have confirmed with Ports Toronto that they are committed to putting forward and sharing with the community, and also engaging on it fully and properly in advance of the work starting. So then, in the broader waterfront news, and of course the YQNA is one of the most important champions and stakeholders of the waterfront in its entirety. As of January, the Deputy Mayor was really proud to stand with other government partners to announce the funding of the next phase of waterfront revitalization, which was an over $1 billion investment by all three orders of government in order to fund the infrastructure and the parks and the studies that are necessary to continue the process of revitalization across our waterfront in Quayside and in Minising, the new island that's been created out of the renaturalization of the Don River. So that's very exciting to have a firm commitment of the extension of Waterfront Toronto's mandate to be able to continue the work that they do, which involves, of course, the involvement of community feedback and consultation, of which YQNA has always been a very important stakeholder. So that funding commitment has been signed off and agreed to as of earlier this month, and so the work now will begin on or continue to advance the construction of out in Quayside, which includes the affordable housing and rental housing that is part of building a complete community. We'll see this summer, of course, the full opening, although I know there's been some sneak peeks of the parkland around the naturalized river. That will be really and truly exciting. At the same time, of course, we know that the development of those communities require good rapid transit, and the East Waterfront LRT is the project that will deliver that. We know that the YQNA has been at the table advocating and at every stage for that. At the end of last year, there was an update report to City Council, which provided an update on the design work for the LRT, which is now approaching the 60% design level. That is been really important because at that level of design, that is when partnerships and funding arrangements from other orders of government can be achieved. So through these, the previous discussion, or the earlier discussion I mentioned around waterfront revitalization, I know a funding plan for that LRT is also top of mind, and the next piece of work in terms of coordination between all the governments to achieve a funding package for that. So we expect to hear more of that in the coming, in this year. Then maybe I'll just touch on as well another aspect of the waterfront and harbour, where you're on the front door of the Toronto Island Ferry. We will have tomorrow at Executive Committee a report that recommends a new management structure for the ferry system. Right now it's been managed by our Parks Department, which execute a real great amount of work and for a ferry system that is one of the largest in Canada, has 1.4 million visitors every year, but requires after 20 years of plus of work under the amalgamated city, it's time for an assessment of where does the management and skills and expertise lie within the city to truly do the best job for that. So after that review, there's been a recommendation from a consultant that was hired who had expertise in the the ferry industry from across the country, which looked at where can we ensure that the best management of the asset, where there's the organization that provides the best expertise in terms of regulatory approvals and really putting vehicles into work every day. And that's so that recommendation is to move it to our fleet services division at the city, and as well within that division, like increasing the prominence of the ferry system within the division, which means establishing a director level person who's responsible and accountable to senior leadership, so that there are eyes from the top looking at how our ferry system is running and operating. So that's making its way through executive tomorrow and to city council in the following week. Then maybe I'll just touch on, just one thing I did neglect to say about Queens Quay transit is that in the immediate, of course, we need transit now while we still work on the LRT. And that means that there was an opportunity that the Deputy Mayor championed to implement a dedicated bus lane for Queens Quay East, which will not require the removal of vehicular lanes due to the amount of space that's there presently. So the 114 bus that runs along that area is going to be reconfigured so that we have dedicated bus lanes to get people moving quicker along that route. That's also going to City Council this week, within the next week. And then I may just touch on the Charter City item that I know was something that YQNA, other organizations throughout Foster had supported in the face of provincial overreach for the last 8 years of this government. We've tried to seek a pathway to saying, how can we more firmly embed what the responsibilities of municipal government are, which is the government closest to people in terms of planning issues and development and bike lanes and other items that are really best known by your local government. Now, so the Charter City idea is one way of enshrining it. What went before council was sort of the preparatory work in order to analyze what are the options for these different types of governance models. And through that motion, the Deputy Mayor supported the establishment of a program advisory body on municipal autonomy and effective local governance, which means we can start the work now to see what is the type of framework that might work better in this environment. And then just lastly, in terms of the Ontario Place redevelopment and the combined sewer outflow, which was a sewer that discharges at the west end of Ontario Place, which as part of the provincial government's plan to implement the mega spa and the landfill or lake fill around the site, it required an interim treatment and adjustment to that pipeline, which would have discharged inside the water channel that is now present, or that is now used by boats and kayakers and swimmers throughout the summer. So that was also the subject of a public posting, which through the advocates of Ontario Place for All, and I'm sure a number of you in the room as well, through those comments periods that was received by the Ministry of Environment. After that, the Infrastructure Ontario announced that they were withdrawing their application for this thing, and then, which is incredible, after, of course, and the issue being raised, of course, through our member of provincial parliament rigorously at Queen's Park and in the community as well. So we don't know what will happen after this. Infrastructure Ontario is not communicating in terms of what their future plans are, but at this time, it was not proceeding.
Amazing people.
So I'll leave it at that. So those were the updates.
I had a question, I guess I'll just, as part of the island thing and to do with RISA, there was a last minute amendment that had to do with an extra 12-year extension on the lease, with the formerly going to expire at 2033, but the council said, well, they can get an extra 12 years if they don't have the money they need the 12-year extension in order to build it. But they seem to have lots of money because they're public, their finances are public. And just wondering, and then that decision seems to have been very quietly made by the city very recently. I think the amending agreement is January 28th or something like that, where they did get the 12 years, even though they seem to have lots of money already, hundreds of millions of dollars actually. Can you comment at all on how that process unfolded and whether we'll hear more about why that was decided?
So I think the recommendation from City Council when RISA won the preferred option was decided also included a direction to look at an extension of up to 12 years based upon Ports Toronto being able to make the case that they required that amount of time to secure financing for the RISA project. So that assessment was to be done to the satisfaction of the city's chief financial officer, which was delegated to them as the experts in financial matters. That analysis included disclosures of confidential financial information. So the entire assessment was done within our city staff at the highest level, who made the assessment that extension was justified. And that was, of course, in the face of what I mentioned earlier, that on the floor of council, certainly was an interest and a push to have extensions much further than that would lead to 40 or 50 more years of the island airport without being able to make that assessment and update what the future of those lands should be.
Question?
Would you like to facilitate?
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Great.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question with regards to the traffic.
Use the mic, please.
Oh.
Go to the mic over there.
Well, only one.
Maybe you could repeat the question. That might
Yeah, okay.
I can also speak very loud.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have a question regarding the traffic for the new development on the east side. Will they make the same mistake they did on the Queen's Quay East extension, where they build the houses first and then think of putting the streetcar tracks in? Or would they put the streetcar tracks in first before they build the houses?
Well, so the way everyone knows it should have gone is that you lead with transit and you build the neighborhood around it. Now that has not happened, and so now we are progressing as quickly as possible towards the implementation of the LRT, which involves not just the tracks, but it's the entire rebuilding of the street. So those plans have been done in conjunction through Waterfront Toronto and city planning to be aligned and in order with the planning of each of those buildings and where their exits are placed. Of course, we're also talking about new streets that are being implemented as well. That includes the extension of Down Street and then a reconfiguration of the off-ramps there. So there's also a transportation master plan within that whole district that's been planned comprehensively, which then is also reaffirmed once a building goes through their final development approvals.
Yes, Tom, if you could just remind us what you said earlier on about where the Waterfront LRT is in the process. I think you said 60% completion is being reported on, is that right? Do you know when the TPAP's coming out?
The 60% design for several of those phases, that's approaching completion. And the TPAP, as of a couple of months ago, had received, I believe it had been submitted to the Ministry of Environment, and the comment period had been completed. And so I would have to go back to check exactly where that was.
I was rather concerned that we'd missed it, an opportunity to comment on it, because we had some issues with what they were proposing, did we not, some of us? So maybe you could look into that and flip me an email, please, Tom. Thank you.
There's a lady over here.
Thanks. Hi there.
Hello, Tom. So, thank you for that update. That's a lot going on. It's such a busy area. I do have some questions. I'm so behind trying to absorb everything that's coming at us down here. I don't know how you do it as a politician, working with a politician, but my main concern, Tom, when we hear about safety is exactly that. Safety. I'm backtracking. The airport, I just heard you say, well, you know, the timeline, the safety. Well, you know, they've known about RESA for how many years now?
Yes.
Okay, so what timeline are we talking here? Wasn't this just a strategy to put pressure on council to do that? So why did we have to miss out on our 90-day open public consultation? And why haven't we done our assessments for health, economics, and what's the other one? Environment. Why are we jumping through hoops when we are checking our own safety here? I live down the street, and I know you know where I'm going with this. We did an air quality study, and honestly, I am really concerned. UFPs are 10 times worse than air traffic. For I don't know how many years I'd go to Port's meeting, and I would hear about traffic pollution. We've got planes. Anyway, I'm digressing here because my question is, I think that I'd like to ask, we need our day for safety to be addressed for health and safety on the waterfront. I don't think it's a good enough reason for our councillor to say we can progress it the next time we will have the time.
So I think your question is,
Thank
there's
you.
going to be some review of safety in the upcoming consultations in the master plan, down master plan, is that right?
Yes, I mean, yes, the island, the airport master plan under Ports Toronto is their comprehensive plan for how they imagine the next stage of their future, and that involves the opportunity for a comprehensive look across the board at what the implications are for that process. And I don't think there can be any question that at Ports Toronto's obligations for RESA were left to a very late period. And it was a critical safety requirement, a regulatory requirement that the city had the responsibility to address. Yeah.
In the back, there's, yeah, thank you.
Fuel storage.
Sorry?
Fuel.
Fuel storage,
At
yeah.
the airport. Fuel storage at the airport is done in barrels that sit, until recently, with a red snow fence around them. And now they built a more substantial thing around their fuel. They can't put it underground because of the water table. And there's no space at the island airport for a plane that
What's-
comes in a little
Do you have a question?
crazy.
What's your question? Do you,
My question
yeah.
is, it should be shut down because the fuel, if a plane ever came in like the one that came in out at Pearson Airport and hit that fuel storage, which has had drunks and animals in it, that's how secure that is, everything would be gone to Yonge Street. No, don't laugh. It was an aeronautical engineer that told us at
I mean-
YQNA that everything would be gone to Yonge Street. I think
So-
of all the condos that are down here. We got talked into coming down and living by the waterfront. Supposed to be a little tiny airport, it isn't anymore. It should be gone.
I don't know, do you want to answer that?
I heard the comment.
Yeah, we hear the comment, I guess. There are certainly objections by a lot of people in the community to the airport, which we can't really go over right now. Fuel storage is one of those, and we'll just have to talk about it in the master plan, I guess. We We're hoping for a more full review before they decided to extend the time frame, but it looks like it. It'll be sort of an airport-driven thing, and they're going to be there for a while. That is the reality, unfortunately. That's the way it is, I think. Tom, thank you so much for coming. And for giving us this. Chris is going to be here. He always has lots to say about what's going on at Queen's Park, where things are eventful. There's been a general election, and he can tell us all about what's going on down there with Ontario Place and everything else.
Okay, thank you so much, Ed. Well, first of all,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be back here and get the opportunity to serve this community for another 4 years. It's been an incredible opportunity, and it's actually, to be honest, a bit of a relief, because in this historical time, I am so happy to have this seat at the table at Queen's Park and to be representing all of you and taking your voices to Queen's Park, for all of the things that are happening. And I'll tell you, a few of my first priorities is we've got to protect our small businesses and our local communities here. And so I've got a meeting, or I'm organizing a meeting with the BIAs and with the small business organizations. We also have to deal with safety, and speaking of safety, we got to deal with these coyotes. And I know the city, and kudos to Deputy Mayor Malik. They got a city report on the coyotes. These coyotes, we had a press conference a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the coyotes, and the province's response, the government's response was, well, there was no evidence of coyotes ever being at Ontario Place. And so I phoned Francesca, who is the photographer at Ontario Place, and in 15 minutes she sent me photos of little coyotes and their pups playing at Ontario Place, and a coyote crossing the ice to Ontario Place, And there were, let's see, what's the number? 2.9 million visitors to Ontario Place in 2022. Thousands and thousands of people went there and walked their dogs. There were coyotes, but I never heard of a negative interaction between the coyotes and the dogs. Liberty Village probably has as many dogs as people. I mean, there are a lot of dogs in Liberty Village, and we love our dogs. But, we've never had these kind of interactions. They clear cut the trees there at Ontario Place. They also, with the Ontario line, they cut down all of the brush on the side of the railroad tracks. They destroyed at least one den that we know of. And all of a sudden the coyotes are starting to attack dogs. And so, the correlation is just too keen to not draw the conclusion that this is what's happened. But the province is not taking responsibility for what they've done. And the city is sort of left holding the bag, which is unfair to the city. We need to do something, and I've been working with, and I know Deputy Mayor Malik, and we've been working with the community. We need to find a resolution to this, whatever it is, but the community safety's got to be, first and foremost. Let's see, I've got a whole bunch of things to talk about. I was riding my bike down here tonight, and it felt like the first day of spring.
Yes.
It's just so beautiful to ride along the waterfront. And we had a beautiful winter, and we had a beautiful winter in part because we had a skating rink at Harbourfront again. Yes. So let's give a big round of applause to our Deputy Mayor, to Cathy Loblaw, the Executive Director of Harbourfront, for making that a reality again, and to all of you here in the YQNA who kept the pressure on to bring that skating back to the waterfront, because that was such a delight to have that over there. Let's see, going back, I'm swearing in tomorrow. I'm officially your MPP again tomorrow. Which is a real honor and a treat. I was asked by Ed to talk about the new government, the new direction, and major social concerns. I'll talk about the new government. I think this tariff threat offers an opportunity. I think it offers an opportunity to change our economic ideology. For the last 40 years, I'd say from the mid-'80s, we've had this economic ideology that we're going to sell off our public assets, we're going to privatize our public services, we're going to let the market take care of everything. And what has happened is the gap between rich and poor, if you end up buying those public services or assets, you get very, very wealthy. And then everybody else ends up very, very poor. We've got, corporations buying up massive tracts of housing and then evicting everybody and jacking up the rents. We've got no rent control on anything built after 2018. We haven't built public housing in Ontario since 1995. That's the last time we built public housing in Ontario en masse. Co-ops, social supported housing. There are 18 co-ops in this riding. and they all date back to that last NDP government or before that, you know, to the post-war period. We've got to get back into the business, you know, as far as social issues go. We've got to make housing affordable again, and the way to do that is to learn from the past, and which is to have the government directly build not-for-profit housing. And so we've got to get back into that. And I think there's an opportunity here because the ideology, the economic ideology that we've had has not been working for most people. And we now have pressure to buy Canadian, to look at ourselves again, to look at our own businesses and to support our businesses. And I would say one of the most important things, and a real bastion of this, should be Ontario Place. Canceling the Ontario Place deal. There's no way that we should be giving a $2.2 billion taxpayer subsidy and a 95-year lease on public parkland to an American and Austrian corporations. That should be going to Canadian companies. The purpose of Ontario Place was to showcase Ontario ingenuity to the world. IMAX Theatre, that was the world's first IMAX theatre. IMAX technology is an Ontario-based technology. That place, Ontario Place, launched the architectural careers of Eb Zeidler and of Michael Huff, the landscape architect, and Eric McMillan, who was who invented the Children's Village. He is the inventor of the ball pit. You know, so if your children, I was too old for ball pits. It wasn't quite my generation, but certainly my children and my grandchildren love ball pits. That's Eric McMillan. That came out of Ontario Place. There's an incredible opportunity. If we're going to spend $2.2 billion, redeveloping that space, let's do it with Ontario ingenuity and Ontario innovation and celebrate Ontario. So I think there's an opportunity. And it also speaks to the city. You know, Olivia Chow was just announcing today that the city's going to be focusing on Ontario procurement, you know, and buying Canadian, making sure that we're supporting Ontario businesses with our procurement. We need to be doing the same thing at the provincial level, and that's something that I'll be pushing for. I've got a few more things to announce. One is there's been 3 lawsuits. This government ends up in court a lot. And I would say from our side, we're 1 for 3. We won a Supreme Court, the Ontario Federation of Labour, some other labour organizations, as well as the Civil Liberties Association, won a suit against this government for Bill 307. It was in 2021, the government passed this bill. I'll try to give you the elevator pitch on this. They passed a bill that said that you cannot pay for advertising on political issues a year out from a provincial election. And the judge looked at this and he said, well, you're just trying to silence your opposition. You don't want, any organization that's critical of the government to not be able to pay for advertising that would, criticize what you're doing. And so it was turned down at the courts, and the government came back and said, well, and the court argued that it's a violation of our freedom of speech. So the government said, well, the conservatives, they said, we're going to strip you of your right to freedom of speech using the notwithstanding clause. So they passed the bill again using the notwithstanding clause. It went through, there was the election in 2022. The organization, Ontario Federation of Labour, they went back again and appealed it. They said, it's not only a violation of our right to freedom of speech, which you can override with the notwithstanding clause, it's also a violation of our right to a free and democratic election, which is guaranteed in Section 2 of the Charter. And that one you can't override with the notwithstanding clause. And the Supreme Court came back and they said, yes, that our right to a free and democratic election in 2022 was violated with Bill 307. So this is a significant victory for all of us who care about our democratic rights in this province. And we owe it, yes, and we owe a real debt of gratitude to the Ontario Federation of Labour, the Civil Liberties Association, and all the other different parties that went and took this government all the way to the Supreme Court. There were 2 other cases that I mentioned. One is the Ontario Place Protectors. They were fighting against a bill, the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act. And this is the bill that said that the Ontario Place project is exempt from all municipal and provincial laws. And that if a minister or government agent committed an act of misfeasance, which means abuse of government power or a breach of contract or breach of tort, in this project, then they were exempt from legal persecution. And anyways, so Ontario Place Protectors took it to court. They lost the first. They appealed. The Ontario Court of Appeal just ruled against them again. They did grant them. They said that the initial court ruling was mistaken in not saying that they did not have standing. And this is, I won't get into the legal parts of this, but there was a small victory in there, but so now they're debating about whether they can go to the Supreme Court. And the challenge is the government was awarded costs. So Ontario Place Protectors is now on the hook for $25,000 in government costs, and legal costs. So, you know, fighting for our democratic rights costs a lot of money. But anyway, so I'm communicating with them. Eric Gillespie is the lawyer, and Margie Zeidler, Eb Zeidler's daughter. So Eb Zeidler is the architect from Ontario Place. Margie is his daughter. She's been leading the Ontario Place Protectors. So let's give them a round of applause too, because they deserve it. We're all in there. And the final lawsuit, this is 3, Cycle TO took the government to court, arguing that they should not be able to take, they were looking for an injunction against the taking out of the bike lanes. Unfortunately, they lost that one as well. Yeah. So
Unfortunately.
this week. Yeah. So we're one for they're saying March 30th. They may start tearing out the bike lanes.
Can you not tell them that they're wasting the money they should put because of the tariffs into the business instead of wasting it on removing safe bike lines?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Whatever they're spending on, removing these bike lanes would be better off supporting the small businesses that are going to be impacted by tariffs. I fully agree with you. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Let's see. A couple of other things. Redpath on March 26th will be celebrating the 164th annual Port of Toronto celebration, and it's to celebrate the arrival of the first ocean-going vessel here at our Harbourfront. So watch for information about that. That's pretty exciting, the 164th anniversary. Because it is, the St. Lawrence Seaway, the ice melts and the first ocean ships start to come in. So you'll certainly see it in the news. And final announcement on Saturday the 29th at 1 p.m. I've got my annual Community Recognition Awards. And it's where we recognize the people who give back to our community in different ways and help to build our community. So if you're interested, you're certainly welcome to attend. I can send you the details, or I could send them to Ed or Neil, and they can forward those to you as well. Okay. That's all mine, and if you have any questions, I'm open for questions.
Yes.
Carol.
Sorry, it's me again. On the bike lane issue, they lost the injunction, but don't they still have a court case against the actual bill?
Yes. I can't speak in detail about that because I'd have to brief. But if you want information about that, I could include it in a briefing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any chance we can repurpose the crown and glory of Moriah, the Ontario Science Center building, in any way?
Oh,
That's my heart.
Yeah, I know. I would love to. I would, hopefully.
Ontario with the pyramids were.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's certainly something we've been working. Ontario Place for All is actually, helped to, create the group, the Save Our Science Center group as well. And so they've been working really hard to save this. I don't know. Certainly we're going to keep the spotlight on what's happening with the Science Center, and we don't want it to end up in one of his developer friends' hands.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, everybody. It's great to be back.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. That's great. Good to see you. Do we have anybody from Kevin Bong's office? I'll take that as a no. Okay. So we're going to move on to our main feature. That's our speaker is Michael Conway, who we welcome. He's the gentleman over there. He's been working for many years for Hariri Pontarini as an architect involved in projects including the well. Most of you have probably been to see the well at the foot of Spadina. And I was just telling him that I was there a little while ago, was kind of looking around on the second floor, was actually trying to find the washroom, and I found the old Globe and Mail doors. Many of you might remember the Globe and Mail building used to be there, and I worked there when I was a lot younger, and I used to go through those doors all the time and up the big escalator to the newsroom. And it was kind of a thrill to see them. They're kind of a little bit hard to find, but they are there. And they're kind of a recognition of the past. And I love the development, and it seems to me that it's a thing that people feel they've got to go see. I've heard people say, have you been to the well? You gotta go see it, you gotta check it out. And that's sort of something I can't really remember when we had a development, you know, of a downtown building that was like that people felt they really had to go and have a look at. So Michael Conway tells me he was born in London. He went to architecture school in Carleton.
Ontario.
Ontario. Yes, London, Ontario. Yeah, not. Yeah. We all assume that London means, I think, London, Ontario. Yeah, so we're pleased to have him talk about, I guess, creating livable spaces in our high-density city down near the waterfront. Thank you. What's the best thing here?
I'm going to turn it and then I can sit there and then.
Should I put this down here or not, or what?
Sure.
What's the story?
Yeah, I think so.
Or what do you recommend? Neil?
You can leave it there.
Just leave it here? Are we going to get anything back?
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the kind words. It's quite exciting to be here tonight to share with you a few projects that I have worked on, that our office has built just north of the waterfront.
A little closer.
Sorry.
To your, holding up the mic a little bit.
Okay. And we're having technical difficulties.
Can I do it
Stand on
manually
the other
here?
side of the screen.
Can I do it manually in the next?
Sure, I guess. Yeah. You know what? Why don't I do it over here, and then I can flip it. It might be a bit easier for that. It looks like the battery's died. Okay, so what I'm going to walk you through tonight is two projects that we had worked on just north of here. The first one being King and Portland Centre, and the second one being the Well. So both of these are located within the King West neighborhood. King and Portland, we had worked on it. We started the same year, 2012, the same year that we were working on the Well. So it was kind of an interesting year to start two major projects that really bookend the King West neighborhood in Toronto. So King and Portland Centre is 1.5 acres, and it opened up in 2019, just before the pandemic. So one of the interesting things that we see within the King West neighborhood is when you look at it as a car-centric point of view, the blocks become very large and cumbersome. But what's quite interesting and unique about the neighborhood is that there's a very strong porous pedestrian network that ends up running through it. So these large blocks really get broken down into a very fine-grained pedestrian network that weaves itself through the neighborhood. In 2008, just at the height of the financial crisis, our office moved down to King and Portland. So this is the building that we spent a decade working in. And what was interesting, about a year after Buka had opened up, so they had, there was a couple things that was quite interesting about this restaurant. One, the client really liked it because it was hugely popular. It ended up making like some of the top 5 places to eat in all of Canada. And what we really liked about it was that you had to go down a laneway, so it became a bit of a word-of-mouth way of experiencing it. But there was no main entrance off of the streets. So this is the main entrance into the building. So it was located in the basement of the former brick and beam warehouse building. But that became the start of how we started to look at the master plan for how we started to think about the block. So this idea of not having the main entrance off of the main street allowed us to really look inwards within the block plan. So at the time when we started this, there was this was a Harhe development, and this was a Plaza Court development. So we started looking at how we could start to form this internal network within the block where really focusing on the pedestrian and ways of being able to move freely to all of the main streets internally within the block. So we ended up, Allied and RioCan ended up purchasing it after the first developer ended up selling it. So what happened at this point was King and Portland Centre, or King and Portland, the building 602 King Street, ended up becoming part of the development. So it kind of grew a little bit more towards Portland. So working in the neighborhood, it allowed us to, as we took lunches and moved around and explored all these areas within King West, which was going through a very strong change at that time. We started to create these maps of just documenting some of the existing conditions. So looking at the height and the width that really started to create these spaces within the neighborhood. And then we also started to document these neighborhood characters that we started to term them, that started popping up in these spaces in between. So these areas of outdoor patios, these areas of nature that was kind of starting to take over buildings, and really offering this sense of discovery within the neighborhood. So looking at some of the key attributes that we started to bring into King and Portland Centre was really looking at shifting the gravity of the development, putting the elevator core, putting the main entrances within the center of the block as opposed to out on the street. So this allowed for not only people moving into and activating the center of the block, but also importantly at the end of the day, being dispersed within the center of the block. We also had designed some restaurants that were playing off of the Buka model and hidden within the block. The second was looking at the brick elements of the base of the building. So really looking at trying to pick up the scale and the materiality of the neighborhood. So really trying to make it feel like it's always been part of the scale of the neighborhood with the base of it. So looking at materiality in different heights, but really a strong sense of fitting into the neighborhood. And then as we started to extrude the building, we started to look at eroding the volume as a way of putting that emphasis back on the heritage scale that we see throughout the neighborhood. Also, the building is, the majority of the building is commercial with a residential block towards the Adelaide street. So looking at a really strong mixed use scale to the building. And then we also looked at the brick of the base and then looking at floating a glass tower sitting above it. And then finally, Claude Cormier was the landscape architect on the project, and he ended up designing a few of the terraces, especially these little pill-shaped terraces with trees and greenery that's inside of them. So looking at the project, how it fits into the neighborhood, we can see the heritage building of 602 King Street right at the corner, how it scales up. Looking at the other two developments, and then this smaller scale that we had a few houses that were interesting enough. They were there before the block, before the neighborhood ended up going industrial. So it's like they really predate the 19th century buildings that we see within the neighborhood. So you can kind of see them a little bit. You can see the office building on King Street and the residential building on Adelaide, and then it's a bit dark here, but there are a series of row houses that are along Adelaide Place that are at the base. And then looking at all those elements coming together. So part of this idea of really pushing internal to the block, we started to look at having a very strong connection, lining these laneways with restaurants as a way of providing light and providing safety within the center of the block. And unfortunately, the restaurant is not here anymore. It fell victim to early COVID, but there's a new bar that has opened up that is starting to access the laneways again. And then another view looking towards Adelaide through this series of portholes and internal network that links together the whole block. So moving on to the well. We started the well the same year. It was a little bit further on in the year, but this idea of having this mixed-use development taking place within the former Globe and Mail lands was quite an exciting project to start with. So in 2012, RioCan ended up assembling Allied and Diamond Core. They came together to form RAD, which ended up purchasing the Globe and Mail lands and started down the road 13 years ago to what we see today. So we were involved with the master planning at the beginning of it. So David Pontarini was the principal architect. I was the lead architect in charge of design and in charge of seeing the design all the way through the project. So we also, as we started to progress in it, we were in charge of doing the office portion of the well, and BDP was brought on to do the retail. Adamson and Associates were brought on as the architect of record, and then Architects Alliance had worked on the residential buildings along Front Street. Rudy Woolman worked on the buildings on Wellington. Claude Cormier, CCXA, did all of the landscape architecture, and Urban Strategies was in charge of the planning. So as we start to get into further on in the process, we can start to see how many consultants were really started to be involved in the project. So, this list started growing and growing to all the people that worked internally, and this is not including any of the construction workers on the site. So this was really a bit of a snowball effect on here, but when we started the project, it was the old Globe and Mail land. So I find this image quite interesting, where it seems like such a foreign view of King West, with all the layers and layers and layers of automobiles overlaid within here. So this was quite interesting, where when we started the project in 2012, this is what Toronto, the waterfront, looked like within the city. So one of the things that really still stands within this part of town is is defining these little differences. And it's quite interesting how Spadina really separates the difference between one side of the street and the other side of the street is pretty profound in this part of town. Similar to what we see with the Gardner to the north and to the south. So looking at the difference between the financial district and then King West, looking at our site, which is right at the corner, which really started to become this idea of addressing this gateway condition to and from the financial district to King West, and really having that strong relationship between the two. So Allied has been involved with a lot of the buildings from the time when the zoning, when it went from industrial to mixed-use residential. So they started picking up properties and then started to convert them into office buildings, restaurants, and a lot of the retail that we see within the neighborhood. And so we're at 7.6 acres right at the corner. So looking back to King West, the way of our starting point, we had a very interesting opportunity of being able to bookend the King West neighborhood with these two projects and really push that pedestrian network to the two extents of the neighborhood. So when we started off looking at the project, it was very important for us not only to define what the project is, but also to define what it's not. It's not a shopping mall. It was really seen as this urban mixed-use development. We've studied, there was a delegation that ended up going to the UK in order to see a few of these developments that were starting to spring up, where they were really looking at mixed-use buildings, kind of reinvigorating some older downtown cores in various cities across the UK. The other thing is that it's not the financial district. This is King West. It's brick and beam buildings. It has a very different feel, has a very different vibe to the neighborhood. You know, people do not go home at 5 o'clock and empty out of the district. It really starts to come alive when the offices start to empty out and goes deep into the night. So a few things that when we started working on the project, we ended up, it became, someone mentioned it to Claude Cormier about this 1837 plan, which was quite interesting, seeing Wellington Place as this barbell park linking Victoria Square and Clarence Square. So this became a very kind of strong starting point for the design when we started. So we met a lot with the community groups. Ken Greenberg was involved as part of the Wellington Street Association, and we also met with the Draper Street Association. So from those meetings, what we ended up doing was we ended up kind of creating a map that we titled like What We Heard. So the kind of three things that really came out of meeting with the Residents Association was one, this idea that that the development, they really wanted it to feel like an extension of King West. The second was this idea of connecting the parks. And then the third was with Draper Street, where they really wanted to take a different approach of the opposite of not in my backyard, but they really wanted to be part of the development and not have the development turn their back to it. So part of the site, the Globe and Mail lands, was this little missing tooth within Draper that Claude Cormier ended up turning into the Draper Street Park. So for a few of the key design moves that we looked at was picking up the scale of the neighborhood. It was very important through the materiality that it feels that it is part in defining these characteristics of the neighborhood. We started to look at rotating the towers as a way of thinking about not looking directly at your neighbor, but being able to open up views of the waterfront and then opening up views of the city. We spent a lot of time looking at the height and scale of the Wellington Street buildings in order to remove the shadowing north of the street. And then one of the really interesting parts of the project is the deep lake water cooling, which I'm sure you're all familiar with being on the waterfront, but that was quite an interesting kind of bringing them on at an early stage in order for them to create a large tank at the bottom of the well, which not only allows for the heating and cooling of 3 million square feet for the development, but also allows for another 17 million square feet of development, future development to plug into it. We had an idea from the beginning that we didn't want it to feel like the whole project was coming from one architecture hand, so this idea of working collaboratively was a very important aspect to the project. So we're really making it feel like an extension of the city as opposed to an object that's in it. And then finally, with the partnership that was put together on it, it was quite interesting seeing this 50-50 mix of commercial and residential, which is not something we see too often, that 50-50 mix. So from some of the early development of it, we had this idea of we're putting the height at the corner of at Spadina and Front Street, and then we're using the site as a way of transitioning down to the neighborhood scale. We also looked at not just the height and density, transferring that across the site, but also looking at how we take the materials and transition the materials down to the neighborhood scale. So looking at bringing some metal and glass elements that we see in the financial district, bringing them over to into King West, but really carefully landing them on the brick and stone building base that really starts to help that transition into the neighborhood. And then as we can see it here at the corner of Front and Spadina, where we have the aluminum terracotta color elements transitioning into the heritage building where Adamson is located right at the corner. And then looking at, this was the breakdown of who was responsible for who on the project, but projects at this scale, it's there's a lot of hands that are touching, a lot of people that are involved in the process. And looking at the buildings as they come together, there's 7 buildings, all integrated within the site, all nestled within the King West neighborhood. There's 9 entryways into the development. It's open 24/7. So this idea of really extending this pedestrian network into the development was a key part of the design process of it. And then looking at the site plan, or the ground floor plan of the development, the key move with the spine as the spine comes down and meets the corner. This is Claude Cormier's plan that shows the planting and the trees as it integrates around the whole city block. And so Claude ended up befriending one of the residents of the Draper Street, which he started to develop this idea of playing off of the Birdsea Park being the dog park, and then having the cat park on the west end of the city. Unfortunately, Dizzy didn't make it to see the opening of it, but he is forever memorialized within the site. So looking at Wellington Street, a few of the kind of big moves that we're really excited about that came about in the city is having a street that's really lined with restaurants and terraces. Toronto could always use more of these conditions, but it's really exciting to see that take shape within the city. Just the amount of patios through this right of way. So it's kind of been really growing. Like the trees are really starting to feel like it's a street that's destined for greatness. So we have a little video that kind of walks you through the entryway into the project, looking at the spine, how the spine meets the corner. We set back all the buildings in these colonnades, and we ended up connecting them with bridges as a way of playing off the industrial heritage of the neighborhood, but really trying to get this feeling of that it's a series of buildings that you're walking through that's interconnected through these bridges. And then looking at 8 Spadina, so the building on the corner, I just put this in where it was kind of this idea of how does an office tower change the way that we address and relate to the public realm? On a typical, pretty much most buildings that we see in the city, office buildings, it's very standard. You have a core that runs through the middle of the building, and then you have offices that rotate around that core. The problem that we had when we started working on the project was it landed right in the middle of that desire line where we wanted to enter into the project. So what we started to do is we started to find other precedent projects in the UK that what we're calling a side-loaded core. So by moving the core to the edge of the building, it allows a very different arrangement for the office. But what it did for the project was really open up this very strong connection to the corner of Front and Spadina. We started to extrude the building, and then we started to look at removing these large portions of it. One of the things that we worked a lot on with the city was the shadowing on Clarence Square. The city didn't want to see any additional shadowing on the park, so we ended up going back and forth to study it a lot. But what we ended up achieving through the final iteration of it was that we were providing no additional shadow between 12 and 2 in March, which the city really appreciated. From the previous scheme that was shown, it allowed for 22 extra minutes of daylight on the park during those months. And then the terraces, Claude once again worked on the terraces as they move up the building, and really as a way of taking the landscaping that we see within the neighborhood and really starting to bring it up the building. And then the last kind of key move was this idea of, what we see in a lot of these office buildings downtown is that they're only meant for the people, the tenants that are working in the building. And one of the things that I think is pretty unique to this project is that there was a very strong desire from the client to open that up and really engage people, bring people into the building. So not only do we have the cafe and furniture on the ground floor, but we also, because of going to an N-wave system, we ended up not having to provide large mechanical units at the top of the building, which allowed us to create a rooftop restaurant, which is also open to the public, which is nice that, not only can you go into the lobby, but it's also you can go up to the building and see the views throughout the city. So looking at the project with its relationship to the waterfront. And then going through the main entry into the spine at the corner. The entry into the lobby building, or into the office building through the lobby. We can see the cafe that's in there, the multi-tiered trays that we've been calling them, as a way of really encouraging people in the building and outside of the building to come and, you know, offer a bit of a change of scenery than your typical office environment.
The old Globe and Mail was up those stairs. I went up those stairs. Somewhere up there, right?
I think it's just tucked in one
Was
of
it
the,
in behind there?
yeah.
Good. You have to look around for it.
It's hidden around a corner. But all of the furniture in the building was reclaimed and repurposed from previous buildings that were in the neighborhood. So this is all the wood. We worked with industrial company that took the old wood and transformed it into these furniture pieces. And then finally, the restaurant at the top of it with its beautiful view of waterfront Toronto. I think one of the first times going up there, I was really moved and kind of shocked getting off the elevator, looking out, because it's one of the few times I've ever seen that where you don't see any buildings within the city. You just have this view over the water where it felt like Muskoka's, or it felt like something very, very unfamiliar to downtown Toronto. Yeah. And that's the presentation. Thank you.
That's great. I guess I have a question, which is, where is the cat? I want to know where the cat is, the statue. Is that on front?
It's on Draper Street.
On Draper Street,
Yeah.
Which is the...
So it's a little tiny street.
Oh, the little street that kind of goes through?
Yeah.
Okay. So next time you're looking for the cat. I didn't understand. Questions? Lula has a question.
Yeah, we always say we can't have anything nice in Toronto, but this is beautiful.
Yeah.
My question is, to have something that gorgeous, what does it cost compared to the barren-looking office towers?
I think a lot of that comes from the developers. Like when Ed Sunshine formed with Allied and RioCan, or in Diamond Court came together on it, it's like their vision was, we want a legacy project for one of the largest sites, located in downtown Toronto, and it kind of evolved from there. It was a big move for them to come into downtown, and the aspirations were high all around for the assembling of the team, and yeah.
Carolyn.
Now, I seem to have a theme here of dogs and demolition. I walked my dog, my chocolate lab, watched that project for 12 years. I saw the demolition of the Globe and Mail. I saw the buildings gradually come up. Just wonderful project, just so imaginative, brilliant. Can I ask you about the office tower? Are those crisscross things actually structural, or are they just for fun?
There was an intent for them to be structure, but they didn't turn out to be structure. But sorry, I just wanted to also mention the dog. Like one of the unintended outcomes of the project, I think, was when we started looking at bringing the city into the project. This idea of the sidewalks coming in, it was really interesting to see people walking their dogs inside.
It's full of dogs, like we say on Saturday. It's insane. Yes.
And then, so then they ended up really embracing that as something that's very unique. That
Has anybody seen the dog toilet? It's brilliant. 3 hydrants and some I just wanted to mention, by the way, Diamond Corp, who's part of this wonderful project, is looking after 200 East Key West as well. So we're going to see a really nice building there when we get to it.
Anybody else with a question or comment?
Yeah, what are you working on now?
We're working on a few projects. Like our office, this was only 2 projects, but we have we're about 115 people in the office. there's a split between David and CMAC. So we do a wide range of different projects. We are involved with some of the large malls that are being transformed into mixed-use developments. We're also looking at a lot of cultural spaces, and hopefully a lot more to come. We're working on the ROM right now. The ROM's a big one that's going through our office.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much. It lost its dynamism and all that stuff, and we were really thrilled to meet Cathy. We've met with Cathy a couple times now. She's dynamic. She's got lots of ideas, and we're excited about what kind of stuff might be happening down there. And I think Harbourfront is enormously central to our waterfront. It's right in the middle of it. It really needs to be alive, and it doesn't make any sense for it to be kind of running out of steam. And I'm sure that we're going to see a revival under Cathy, and we're excited about it.
Thank you. That's so nice. All right, let's just see how I get it on screen. How does it go? That is my screen.
You did pick it up before, didn't you? Maybe I will unplug and replug the old.
There we go.
Is it there? We're all set. Well, thank you for the nice welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share with you another update on the renewal and the strengthening and revitalization of Harbourfront and what we're working on together with our government partners, Deputy Mayor Osman Malik's on our board, and a very dynamic force in all that we're doing. And we're very grateful for obviously our provincial and federal partners as well, and all of the revitalization that's happening across the waterfront. It's truly an exciting time to be a waterfront city within a city, and an exciting time for us to be a part of that at the Central Waterfront, and with such a legacy of arts and culture, community and recreation. So I've put together a little presentation today that I'll try and move quickly through because I know it's been a long evening. Let me just first see my button to hit. Is that it? There we go. And first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you. From the time I arrived in August, you have all been very welcoming and supportive and engaged in our vision and mission and how we could work together. And that's really made a big difference to all that we've been able to do, including our wonderful skating rink that will only continue to grow as we have visions for it going forward. So thank you for that. I think as our way forward is defining itself, it's defining itself through listening, through partnering, and through really collaborating on how we build on a wonderful 50-year legacy into the next 50 years. And a place of community for our neighborhood, for our city, and for our province, and all those who visit is really at the heart of who we are. And we are truly one-of-a-kind destination and something to really be nurtured and protected and strengthened. I think of us as a community home for arts, culture, recreation, and education, and how we live into each of those pillars, and how we continue to be a world-renowned campus for arts and culture, celebrating Canadian talent at an international level. For me, Harbourfront is really your Harbourfront, and that is what I have the privilege of stewarding and partnering with you. I am your backyards, front yards, weekends, holiday homes, and it's important to me that for you, your families, and all of the community, that you find a sense of home and connectivity to Harbourfront, and that whatever we co-create within that community is something that we can all enjoy. We do focus and will continue to focus how we connect in the community through arts and through culture and of course recreation and education. and really looking for those magic moments where we can nurture creativity and connection and bring learning to life by the lake in very special ways. I think at the core of us is really striving to find ways for how we can make people feel. So when you step onto that campus, whether it's just a pause and breath, looking at the beautiful lakeside scenery that we have, or it's a connection or a learning or an experience or a performance that touches you, that you feel when you're at Harbourfront Centre. You feel joy, you feel playfulness, you think, you pause, and you connect. And looking for the many different ways that we can create that feeling so that there's a real sense of sparking awe and joy and connection across many magic moments. I would say for all of us, we are finishing up in 2 weeks, the end of this fiscal year for us, the end of March. And it's been a demanding, difficult, tender, and challenging year. At the same time, as we find our way stepping into a new fiscal, there's a real energy of engagement and excitement. We're at a point where our craft and design exhibitions and Design Toronto and the crafting studios have never been more active and more engaging. We're partnering with Craft Ontario to bring it to life to even the next level. We're looking, our artist in residence program, which is one of one in Canada, is just making our current selections for the next 2 years. Ontario Science Centre has been on our campus now for about 6 months and are continuing to stay with an extension. The Kids Spark has been a really wonderful way for families to enjoy the waterfront on the cold or rainy days inside before going outside to skating. Buskers are coming back this summer, which we're very excited about. Live performances, our festivals, art exhibitions, and more in the food and drink space, and really trying to create that sense of community and marketplace. The Science Centre has seen a lot of new families come to the space, both locally and from across the GTA, and that's continuing to grow. I think one of our steps into bringing the community to the campus was starting with our tree lighting back in November. And we had never done one before, and we didn't know where it would live in terms of relevance and engagement. And we were overwhelmed between the vendors and the train rides and the hot chocolate and the skating, the performances and the singing. We had a really extraordinary window there. We saw over 198 million media impressions and 412 media stories, which I think just really reflected how engaged and excited everyone was to embrace the Harbourfront in that way. Obviously, from the tree lighting, we moved into the skating, which was just a wonderful winter. New Year's Eve, between the city's fireworks and CBC telecasting live or broadcasting live from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m., we were, the center of New Year's for this year. And of course, DJ Skate is always a wonderful way to bring the arts into the recreation. Making Harbourfront more year-round is a really core priority for us. It is such a beautiful campus in every season. How do we make sure that there's always something happening at Harbourfront? We had a Maple Syrup Festival, Feb 15th to the 17th, which, as you may recall, was the snowiest, winteriest time. And while everything in the city was closed, thanks to Massimo and our hardworking team, we were open on the Saturday and the Monday with skating, with activities, with fire pits for people to gather around, train rides for the kids, and it was very special. This past weekend, we had the Hot and Sweet Festival, salsa dancing on the square, again, more food and tasting, painting with chocolate, just a real mix of arts, culture, food, and activities. We'll be opening a farmer's market this summer. We're very excited, starting the end of May through till the end of September, Saturday mornings. From 9 to 1, we will have a farmer's market so we can get fresh produce and enjoy that wonderful tradition of walking through the farmer's market, picking out your treats, having a coffee and enjoying the campus. Flavors by Fire will be happening the end of August, and then we'll have Winterfest again. This year was our first Winterfest, so many things were great, lots of learnings, and we're really excited to lean into refining Winterfest and continuing to make it a really hub of how people kick off and enjoy the winter season. Break by the Lake was this past weekend, where we had saunas along the waterfront, and as I said, chocolate painting. We had art installations that people could interact with. We had hot sauces and tasting, and it was just a fantastic weekend of community engagement. And the more that we do this with a consistency and a regularity, the more we're seeing the audiences and numbers grow. Month of February was all about Kumba, Black History and Black Futures Month, and just a broad range of programming that was fantastic. The Bob Marley tribute concert was very, very special. Silent Legacy. The theater, we had wellness sessions. Again, just a wonderful way to bring to life Black History and Black Futures Month on the campus. Our school visits and our camps continue to be very strong, and like everything, we're in a state of review and continuous improvement. Camps have launched for this year, and we're over 50% sold out and expect to be fully sold out soon. Over 45 different camps and some really great new ones. Second City will be partnering with us to do an improv camp, and there's the circus camp and sailing and canoeing. So some of the traditionals and some of the new. Our school visits, we now have over 23,000 children who come through to experience arts and culture at Harbourfront Centre between September and June. So we're continuing to grow and help shape minds and give them exposure. So many programs have been cut across schools that the chance to be at Harbourfront and see those craft and design centres and participate is very inspiring for our young people. We're also in a stage of really seeking partnerships. How can we grow and strengthen through collaboration and new partners? And Museum of Toronto has come on board as a partner. They will be loading in April and be running from May till September. When you think of, we call it the Lavazza, the house that's at the front of the glass, that will be Museum of Toronto from May to September, running a really interesting home game Toronto basketball arts, sport and art intersect, engaging for the young people and kids and engaging for all of us. And we're very excited to explore different partnerships like that that bring art to life on our campus in new ways. Our signature summer programming will continue. Everyone's much loved Summer Music in the Garden, over 18 concerts over the course of the summer. Free Flicks, a big hit during the week for families and individuals to come down and watch a movie outside at the amphitheater. This year we're partnering with TIFF, who will be celebrating their 50th anniversary, and are excited to partner and bring the 50th anniversary to life on the waterfront as well. So stay tuned for some more activities there. And Dancing on the Pier. When you think of the new community square that we've created, it's just become a great place for dancing and salsa lessons and all sorts of ways to really enjoy that outside, and that will continue. And of course, the much anticipated Queen's Harbour. It will be opening in June. They've invested over $14 million in the infrastructure of the restaurant, and it's just looking fantastic. It is going to be a great fusion of Mediterranean and Asian-inspired cuisine, and we're very excited to see it bring another reason to enjoy the waterfront. We have, of course, our iconic Amsterdams, which will continue to be there, and then we will have this as well. And then just very quickly, as we move through the summer, Luminato will be on site with us this year, so we'll be one of their 3 hubs across the city, bringing some really exciting arts exhibitions. National Indigenous Day, Summer Music in the Garden, and South by Southeast will be a music, dance, and culinary festival at the end of June. Through until July, we'll continue with our programs with camps and Summer Music in the Garden. And we've just signed a very exciting new partnership with Live Nation, who will be doing 10 concerts in our amphitheater this summer. So a chance to really engage a broad range of artists. And then, of course, Canada Day, Fun Philippines, Caribbean Fair Vibrations, and Unity Festival will round out July. August, we'll see more camps, summer music in the garden, free flicks, and dancing on the pier, as well as the Habari African Festival and Taiwan Fest. And then in September, we're just in the process of securing Gatsby Redo, which is a very interactive, it's out of New York, it's quite significant, as our head of programming tells me. So as we learn more and as it's confirmed, we'll let you know. And of course, looking to bring TIFF to life on the site as well. And then we're still in development on finalizing, but between October and November, we'll be doing a fusion of art and saunas. And again, that combination of arts and when the water comes crashing down, I can't think what you call it, but splash outside, as well as art that you can interact with in the fall. And I think ultimately, under the vision of Laura McLeod, who's our head of programming, we're really trying to look at our campus in a very holistic way and how it can be a place for everyone where you think, you know, there's always something going on at Harbourfront, let's pop over and have a look. And whether that's with yourself, your friends, your family, more site immersive pieces, we really want to bring more of the art immersive pieces to the site, art installations. You know, there's a very important role in nurturing the development of arts and culture in our country. You know, the arts and culture sector is struggling and going through a time of change and challenge. And so partnerships where we can support and help to that extent are really important. We've had to make some changes this year in our organizational structure to sustain ourselves and to, you know, be in a position to continue to grow. And so TIFA, the Toronto International Festival of Authors, who was founded at Harbourfront in 1974 and had their first festival in 1980. After 50 years of partnering, support, funding, and lots of collaboration, they're going to move to full independence, and they will be wholly responsible for themselves from a financial perspective. But they'll continue to live on our campus with rent-free support, and we'll continue to champion and support them. But their finances will be managed independent of us. And the same is true of the power plant. So the power plant will continue to be on our campus, will continue to provide the building and the maintenance and the support, but they too will be wholly independent and responsible for their own funding. And I think really, from my lens, they're two great Canadian success stories. They found their roots and their beginning and their sustaining and stabilizing at Harbourfront, and now they'll go out into independence, but we will continue to find ways to collaborate and partner and stay a close connection and open ourselves up for what we might next nurture and inspire and support and continue to keep that renewal of growth in our sector going. Cultural diplomacy is certainly an area that we could all use a lot of these days, and thinking about how we can play a role in that dialogue and in supporting that is exciting. Certainly Nordic Bridges, the big project in the past, is a great example of that. Continuing to innovate youth programs and bring up the next generation to appreciate and enjoy arts and performance and culture, and to be year-round. You know, there'll always be a magic to our Harbourfront from May to September, but we're a beautiful country year-round, and we've really had some magic moments this winter and wanting to continue to nurture ourselves year-round. The last thing I'll say is, you know, beyond all the programming, which is in many ways the fun bits, making sure we have a campus that is safe and accessible and beautiful is really important. It's the foundation upon which everything else lives and grows. And so under Massimo's leadership, we are striving to really get our campus to the next level. It's a 50-year-old aging campus with significant infrastructure needs and needs that have not been addressed as they should have been in a continual way. So we're in quite a state of backlog. We had Morrison Hirschfield do an examination and assessment of our campus, and they said at minimum we need to spend $120 million in the next 10 to 20 years, and we're really hitting up against that hard. And we're hitting up against it in ways that are to be expected, but are tough. So our HVAC system in our main campus building is operating at 5%. We need to replace that, but replacing that is $5.2 million. Our HVAC system in the power plant is 15 years past end of life. We need to replace that. There's some grandfathered accessibility issues with that building as well. So you're looking at about a $7.8 million investment there. So there's a lot that we have to pace and sequence our way through. There's a lot we're talking to the city, we're talking to the province and the feds about investing in that infrastructure to ensure our campus is safe and accessible. We run the marina businesses. We have 2 marinas in the commercial marinas, and we have some dock upgrades and piers and things that need to be fixed, and those are expensive. Doors and windows, after 50 years, things need to be replaced. Our campus benches could stand a refresh. I won't even discuss the Amsterdam Bridge, other than it needs to be fixed yesterday. It's been sitting there broken since 2021. And it's just not acceptable, and particularly with the new harbor restaurant opening, and it's just at the heart and center of our waterfront. So it's a priority to find funds to fix that. Fire and sprinkler systems, a light pole replacement, drainage and sewer. We have some real issues with pumping poop out and water into the boats, and we're on a 99-year net lease with the city, so all of that at this moment lands with us to fix and sort and fund. And so those are some of the great discussions that we're having with the city to figure out how we structure ourselves for sustainability and success going forward. And then, there's simple things. I always say everything up until you fall into the lake is us. So all those walkway repairs and making sure that there's some shade and some outdoor furniture for the community square. We have a meaningful list of capital investment opportunities, and we will be prioritizing that over the next 3 years. Because really, when you think of the 6.3 million Canadians that come through our campus every year, and over 1,000 artists that perform on our various stages, it's really important that the campus be honored and not atrophy. And so with that, I'll just close out and say thank you for being here tonight, for inviting me to be here tonight, and just for your support and collaboration. It's really an important part of how together we steward our community, our waterfront, and our harborfront. And we're always listening, and we welcome the feedback. As I like to say, I live in a feedback-rich world, and it shapes us and helps define us and helps us set priorities. So thank you, and if there's any questions, please let me know.
Lula has a question.
I know people here have volunteered at Harbourfront, and you will still invite volunteers to help out?
We do. In fact, tonight I had a town hall with all the Harbourfront volunteers and had a chance to connect and thank them. Volunteering is so important for us because really, whether you're on the staff side or the volunteer side, we are together shaping the experience that people have at Harbourfront. And we're very grateful. We have over 500 volunteers. And when you think of our campus and how active it is 24/7 and year round, we are very grateful for volunteers. So by all means, Saskia heads up our volunteer program and is a part of our Greater People team. So by all means, thank you.
Clerk.
I think it's critical that you should be approaching Brookfield, the landlord of Fleck Dance Theater. They may possibly be interested in putting their name on the theater.
Brookfield does not own that building, it's
Ignore them now.
Perhaps Northern, whoever, responsible for it.
We spoke with them at the time that we sunset the Fleck Dance Theater as part of Harbourfront Centre. It was not a decision we came to lightly. Obviously, there's a lot of nostalgia, emotion, and heart for that theater and for the many performances that have been there. The challenge we faced was that over the last 10 years, it's been running at about 40% occupancy. And then even when I looked at it last year, I think there's 292 bookable days, and we had 90 days booked. And our cost to run that theater, because it's not on our campus, it's something we lease, was over $400,000 a year, and it was a net lease. So in other words, we had to build out this stage and the chairs and the infrastructure, and it wasn't affordable for us to sustain as we were trying to do the core. So I met with Northam.
Maybe
to
worthwhile
see-
you push a few other companies.
Yep. I think for us, it's complete at the end of March, but we did speak with all of our partners about it before we did it. We spoke to Northam to see if there were other options. And I think the other part of it is when we have shows there, we don't get the attendance. You know, I looked at the last 2 shows we had, and I think we sold 39 tickets and 49 tickets. So, you know, it holds a tender place for all of us, and it's a beautiful, beautiful theater, but it just wasn't viable or affordable for us to sustain it any longer. But there may be others.
There are companies that might want to spend a lot less.
For sure.
Meridian spends on, putting their name on that.
Yes.
To get some of the same affluent demographic.
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing to see someone step in, and we've spoken with the dance community, and you know, the dance community, of the 40% occupancy, they were about 20% of it. And, you know, they were not surprised, but they were disappointed, for sure. The only other thing I would say is that when you look at that theater, it holds about 450. Our Harbourfront Centre theater in the power plant holds 350. It's also a sprung dance floor. It's not as wide as the stage at Fleck. That's really the point of difference. But at this point, we haven't found anyone who's come forward to be engaged or to sustain it beyond ourselves. But I know Northam is, open to ideas and options, and would, I'm sure, be happy to speak to anyone about it. But we were sad to see it closed. It's tender for sure. Yes?
I just wanted to know, how does one find out exactly when your free flicks are on and where the list?
Yes,
Do you
okay.
have a list of them?
So there's 2 things. So one, our website at the moment is our primary communication vehicle for arts, classes, lessons, programming, performances, and things like Flick. As we go forward, one of the areas I'm excited to strengthen is our marketing and communications, and to be able to do more. So we did a winter program for this year, and we'll be doing a summer program. And working with the WBIA, we distributed that within the community, but we'll do even broader distribution of it. And I think we'll be leaning into more communications channels so that we can get those materials to key stakeholders and partners like yourselves, like just directly, through your association.
Wanting to put stuff on the website.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So there's more, we can be a better partner in that regard. But our website right now, we really have 3 channels. We have the website, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And our opportunity space is to get much broader than that, and particularly more proactive with our key stakeholders and partners. So I'll take that away to be sure we get those materials out.
Okay, thanks very much. That was great. Do we have Tim Croker, somebody from BIA? Oh, there you are. Sorry to have, gonna have to squeeze you in here at the end. I'm sorry about that. But this is.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dorsa, and I'm the operations manager at the Waterfront BIA. Tim sends his regrets. He wasn't able to make it tonight. He's traveling tomorrow, so I'm here in his stead. I'll keep it short and sweet. I know it's been a long day and long evening. Just a couple of updates. On April 22nd, we'll be hosting a community cleanup for Earth Day. And we'll be at the Love Park at York and Queens Quay, handing out equipment throughout during the morning. And anyone here is welcome to join us, and we'll give you some supplies and join you and go to some of the areas that need some extra care on that day.
What's the day again?
April 22nd. So I believe it is Earth Day.
From what time?
We'll be there during the morning between 9 to 12. But again, on our Instagram, we'll update the time and day if it changes from that. This summer, the Waterfront Festival will be hosting Tall Ships, and it's the weekend before Canada Day, I believe. So that's an exciting event coming to us. Just around the area, we're working on adding more wayfinding elements. I don't know if you've seen any of our triangular prisms or on Queens Quay trying to point people east and west in the area and pointing to restaurants and food and beverage establishments in the area. So we'll be keeping that and also adding more wayfinding for visitors to encourage them to explore east and west throughout our neighborhood. That's it for my updates. If there's any questions or feedbacks or comments. Yes?
Did you advertise your program only on Instagram?
We are on Instagram, we have our website, we have LinkedIn, and
Can you add it to the group here and
sure.
Yeah.
And we also have our newsletter. Yeah.
Okay, we fit along, we'll stick it on the website.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can put you in touch with our social media manager, and we can have our updates
Okay,
there
well,
too.
thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm just going to mention again the cups, the money cups back there. There used to be a money box, or was it a chicken, or what was it? There was something you could put the money in, but it's not here. But there's still cups. So if you feel like unburdening yourself of some cash on the way out, we would appreciate it very much.